Hey everyone, Rarity Dash here. Time for another Patreon-sponsored blind reaction. And this one comes to you courtesy of Johnny Lee Largent, who has requested that I react to another Man-at-Arms Reforged video. This time, it's the one for Alucard's Heirloom sword from Castlevania. And this should be pretty fun. I am a big Castlevania fan, as I've said before. Love the games, and definitely enjoyed the Netflix series, which I reacted to on the channel not that long ago. And I think that's what we're specifically talking about here today, the sword from the Netflix series, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's really, really long and thin, and seeing them make something like that should be, yeah, pretty neat. I mean, it's definitely different, just how long it is, and I'm very excited to see what it's going to look like when they forge it. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. Yep. Alucard. Castlevania. Cool fight there. That was pretty great. Alucard's Heirloom sword. Castlevania. Me presents.
I'm Matt.
I'm Carrie.
We are the Stagmer Brothers, a Baltimore knife and sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man-at-Arms Reforged.
Here we go.
I don't know about you guys, but when they announced that there was going to be an animated series of Castlevania, I was pretty excited.
Yeah, it was pretty hype.
The original Nintendo video game, and there's a lot of cool weaponry, a lot of nice fight scenes in it. In this episode, we're going to be making Alucard's Heirloom sword. This is his favorite sword.
See, that one doesn't look as long from the
this sword
game
would be considered
art.
An S-Talk. Has a
Moon!
Thin blade, very long, very lethal for both slashing and piercing. So we're going to be
definitely good for piercing, as
awesome.
long as that is just stab. Definitely gonna get you some reach. Pounding out the blade. We gotta get it thin. Probably gonna take a while. Oh.
For the guard on this sword, we're going to do something we don't always do, which is we're going to almost completely turn it on a lathe. Even though this does not have a completely round form in the end, I'm going to start this way because we've got these nice peaks in a lathe turn section. You're going to see it basically as round objects that are turned. Sometimes you're going to see some faceting, and Matt's going to make some decisions how he's going to lay that out. But I'm going to get that basic form done for him. It's going to be lathe turned on both sides. The center block, which will be round, we'll take to the mill. We'll cut it flat and make the slot for the blade to go through and things like that. Matt will get into it and get it completely right.
That's cool. See them shape that metal. And then there's this again. Or making the part for the handle, I guess. Oh no, is that the tip? Okay.
Even though I finished the form on the lathe and went through and polished this piece, it needs some faceting work. Matt's going to be able to do this on the smaller wheels on the sander. He'll go through, create this flat surface, and then repolish.
Yeah, this is going to be cool. Sanding it out so it's not all round.
For this heat treat, we're doing something a little different. Normally you always see me or someone else rough grind the blade before we actually do the heat treat. In this case, we're taking the blade straight from being forged right to the heat treat. And the real main reason for that is to try to keep it as straight as possible. This is a long, narrow blade.
Yeah.
You don't really want to grind too much material off of it and risk a chance of warping that'll be a real pain in the butt to fix afterwards. So instead of having nice soft material to grind on, we're going to put in the extra effort to make sure this stays nice and straight.
That's pretty important, so.
Working in a fairly large piece of steel, Tanner begins cutting the pommel. It's going to be made in 2 separate sections. The primary reason for this is Matt's going to come back and do the faceting on the lower piece. While it could be done all on one piece, it'll be far easier if there's 2 and we can then put them together.
Okay.
So we have our 2 pommel pieces that Tanner turned on the lathe. The next step is to take this piece, which I'm calling the either collar or the rondelle piece, and just add facets to the top of it.
Looks cool.
And then I'm going to change the big wheel out to a really small wheel to get on the inside and add facets to that.
Oh, that's a nice effect.
Alright, we've gone through heat treated and now tempered this blade. Now I have to go through, reprofile the tip, and start grinding on this. Now what I'm looking for is what we're calling a diamond cross section, which I do on a rapier on a regular basis. Also going to do a distilled taper, which means it's going to be thinner towards the point than it is towards the guard.
Well, that makes sense. That's how you want it. Yeah.
So for the overlay on
Starting
this
to look a bit
goes down
sharper.
the center, it sits on the guard, bends, goes down the blade, has a fair amount of different height changes, and then you see the cross kind of down the center of the blade. Maybe it's an etching, maybe it's right on the surface. We're going to create it all as one piece in 3/16. Rather than using the CNC plasma table, I'm going to use this milling machine, mainly because the milling machine will give me sharp corners. I've already cut one out. You can see how pointy it is. It gets down pretty small in here, and the cross has got a lot of detail in the form. So I'm going to cut the second one out so that we've got both sides of the piece. Then I'm going to hand them over to Matt. He'll attach them to the guard and grind a bunch of different form. And we'll get it laid over the guard and blade, and then be able to polish the whole piece out.
Alright, Bill did a great job hogging off a lot of material doing the rough grinding on our blade. now time to move on to the finish grinding and then on to the polishing. He was using a 24 grit belt. I'm gonna start with a 60 grit, move on to an 80, 120, 220, and then our final polish will be a Scotch-Brite. Now, the edge wanders just a little bit in some spots, so you're gonna see me start off by taking material off just to get that edge properly aligned on both sides. Then I'll move on to actually doing the bevels. Now when I do the actual bevel grinding, you're gonna see that I'm doing something kind of unique. I'm not gonna just do straight up and down passes. I'm gonna be going at 45-degree angles both left and right. And the reason for that is I wanna try to get these bevels as perfectly flat as possible. And when you change your angles up when you're grinding, you're getting all the little dips and grooves sanded completely out, and then we move on to the actual polishing.
That's looking pretty cool.
Matt is now going to create the final form on these overlays. He's got to go through and grind and create different surfaces than the ones that I cut on the mill. It'll be quite different once he gets it fit to the blade.
Yeah, these guys really know what they're doing. It's it's pretty impressive to see each time I watch one of these.
Using the drawing dies on the Iron Kiss, Ilya now begins to cold forge the pipe. That's going to allow him to give some shape to the handle before we begin doing the detail work.
Now that Ilya's forged our pipe handle to shape, I've gone through and almost polished it all the way out. But before I get it completely polished and smooth, I have to add kind of a loose spiral to the entire thing. And I'm going to do that using a narrow wheel.
Nice. Oh. Nice.
With the surfaces cleaned up, we now polish the handle.
Oh. I'm excited to see all this come together. That's looking pretty cool.
When we first considered making this sword, we thought it was a rather simple piece. But once we got into the build, we realized there's a ton of detail on the hilt, and every piece had to be polished. And though the sword blade looks very simple, it had to be ground just right to get the right look and to make sure it performs well. I think we all did a stellar job and created a sword worthy of being called an heirloom.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. Nice. Very nice. Perfect sword for killing Dracula. Wasting a lot of food here.
click here to subscribe, or click here to watch more episodes.
Well, that
Thanks
was...
for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next.
Yeah, that was pretty great. That was that was a very cool looking one. It looked about right, I think. I'm going back to good image of the sword. Yeah, it's all. Yeah, it is all polished and metallic. I was unsure of the handle, but yeah, that's right. That's what it looks like. Yeah, that was a pretty impressive one. I mean, they're all pretty impressive. What these guys are able to do is crazy. But this is another, like, really, really good one. And that sword looked awesome. And that sword is awesome. Just, I don't know, just how long it is. I think they got the length about right. I mean, Alucard's, I mean, it's hard to tell. It's different proportions and everything. But yeah, seemed pretty good. Just their whole entire take on it and all those steps. It's just cool to see it all come together. And this was a good video. That's really all I gotta say. Hope you liked the reaction. Let me know if you did, and see you in the next one.